Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI in Focus. My name is Lewis, and I'll be hosting this week. You may notice that Chad is not here. He is part of a treasure hunt. We'll be giving out clues throughout this entire episode, and if you can find him before the end of it, there will be a cash prize of $1 million. So, stay focused. My name is Lewis. I'm a development team lead at Thoughtbot, and we're going to be working on ReadySetGo today. Fellow co-hosts, Andrew.
Hey, I'm Andrew, Principal Product Designer here at Thoughtbot.
Hey, I'm Danny. I'm a product management team lead at Thoughtbot.
For those of you newly joining, ReadySetGo is a Rails app generator built with our best practices in mind. And for today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. But first, I want to catch you up on where we are from last episode. Last episode, you may recall, we took our ReadySetGo script and turned it from a command line Ruby script and began the process of turning it into a fully fledged Rails app. And so we've had a few new people join and starting to contribute to ReadySetGo. We had Steve Polito and Valeria Graffero both being onboarded and starting to pick up some tickets. So since last week, let's see, let me back up through my commit history. We resolved a couple issues that we had encountered in the last episode, so we were able to re-enable strong migrations. We set up CI for the /Rails app because it's still living in a subdirectory of the main project. We added test coverage for the Ruby LLM controllers and models that they introduced. Again, those their installer doesn't have any tests, so we added that test coverage and, of course, made some additional configuration to our test harness. A few more things. Let's see. We updated our Rubicop linting config, so as we start going forward, we'll have nice linting. We populated the Ruby LLM model table with fewer than 1,200 models because we're only going to need about 8 of them. Chad had made a suggestion that the reviewers that are working in conjunction with the main model will be can now use different model themselves. We have Hotwire Spark for developers. We fixed a couple small bugs. And that's where we are. So we're still early on in turning the Rails app into a version that hooks into what we've built so far. But before we start building it, and as I always like to say, the most expensive thing you can do in software is build the wrong thing. And our shaping sprints are designed to help prevent that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew, and we'll take a look at what are we trying to build here.
Yes, we thought this week would be a great time to dive into a shaping sprint or design sprint. If you're not familiar with what that means, it's a set of exercises that we do to help shape what we're going to build. So we meet with the teams that we work with to gather all the knowledge that we have built up so far, make sure everyone's on the same page, and then we explore various ideas of what we're actually going to build together. So we go through a few different phases. I'll kind of pull up this little board to help kind of explain what that is. So typically there's like 5 phases in a design sprint. We go by understand first, is kind of the first phase we do, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. This is where we're defining what we're going to build, and this is what we're going to look at today. But typically from there, we go into some other exercises around diverging or creating different ways of thinking about the problem. What are different ways we could solve it? And then we will converge or come together as a team, kind of land on a single solution together. We'll then prototype that using an AI tool or Figma prototype, and then test that with real users just to get feedback on that idea and validate that we're going in the right direction. So really, it's all about building confidence in the product that we're building, making sure, as Lewis said, that we're building the right thing in our MVP. So what better place to do that than with ReadySetGo itself? So yeah, that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to do a small portion of a design sprint. So really just one exercise. Typically, these are a week or longer sprints that we'll do with clients to help kick things off. But we've done some pre-work here in this FigJam board, and we'll run through that real quick and then go through the exercise. But Danny, Lewis, any questions or anything you want to add to that before we dive in?
Nothing for me, and I'll give the first clue. Chad is not in Antarctica.
Ooh.
Nothing for me either. I'm also new to this, so I'm going to be kind of the typical person asking too many questions. But I'm just here for half of the ride. I have to drop in halfway through, but thank you for letting me join.
Yeah, welcome.
Great.
Excited to have you.
Yeah, so Lewis, you'll be like our stakeholder, our client in this use case of a design sprint, and I'll help walk us through some exercises. And Danny, you can contribute as needed.
I'm the clown.
You'll have a good perspective as someone who's less familiar with this whole idea. And to be fair, I'm also just kind of jumping into things this week, so we'll all learn a little bit about ReadySetGo through this process. So. Yeah, just to recap. So Lewis and I, this week, we sat down and we walked through, and he really just kind of explained to me what ReadySetGo is. And we wrote some of that down here. So we'll run through that really quick. If you haven't been following the other streams and you don't know exactly what we're doing here, just so everyone's on the same page. So yeah, a quick description of ReadySetGo is it's an AI-powered web builder, generates Ruby on Rails apps with Thoughtbot best practices baked in. That's kind of the like 30,000 foot view of what we want to be building here. And the goal would be to generate meaningful starts to an application that can be used to rapidly prototype ideas, and once validated, can be used as the foundation going forward, or the code foundation going forward. So that's what we're working on. Yeah, Lewis?
I was going to say, I think that last part is really the most important thing for the audience to understand. Like, we are not building another vibe coding tool. That part about building Thoughtbot best practices baked in is really important. We want our team or your team or whoever is picking up the code after ReadySetGo says, here it is, I'm done. At that point, to be like, this is, excuse me, this is a solid code base, and I feel very comfortable with moving it forward.
Yeah, that was an interesting distinction for me to understand too, as we talked about this more. And the whole like baking in Thoughtbot best practices, I think is really an interesting angle of this from a technical perspective, as well as, you know, as we're creating the software together here, even doing this design sprint is kind of like a thing that we would typically do as part of our typical process. So ensuring that the output of the tool aligns with, our software best practices and our like process of building tools, our design principles and everything like that is also really important. So yeah, Louis, we walked through two kind of use cases for the product too. So ReadySetGo, I think, first would be an internal tool for thoughtbotters, is what we discussed, where this is an opportunity for us to kind of test the output of the tool and make sure it's up to our standards.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything else in here that we wanted to call out. But we'd be using it internally as an opportunity to maximize the opportunity to learn what its weak points are and where we need to push things a little bit more.
Yeah, I think this is, it's 3 stages, and we're gonna get to that when we talk about when we get to the next section. But right now we're just like, how can we provide as much tooling for the people building ReadySetGo to guide it so that when we're essentially saying ready, hey teams, you can use this now, then we've built something that meets our goals, the standards that we set in, that it is doing with best practices. So that's where we are now. But then we want to keep in mind that at some point there will be less and less development on that side, and it'll be all about using it as part of a sprint. And then the third stage, which is where I think, Danny, you said you would be most interested in, is opening that up to the outside world as something that other people can use, and then either continue to work with Thoughtbot or just experiment.
Yeah, I just wrote one more sticky here. I think something we also talked about and didn't capture here was we'll need to be able to validate the output a lot and kind of have a close eye on the code that's being generated, not just like the UI that it might be creating, but also the code quality that's behind that.
This might be a bit of a silly question, but maybe for the viewers who aren't as familiar, what do we mean by Thoughtbot best practices, or like how are we? I don't mean for you to like walk through all of the best practices, but kind of how are we baking in that, like what that best practices means for us?
Yeah, so there's 2 parts. I would say there's the design and development part of it. To speak to the development side, we want everything to be well tested, and we want those tests to be meaningful tests as well. Like a lot of times when working with an LLM agent, it can create tests that do nothing, or like just test itself, or self-referential, or if you play with the test and you try to make the test fail, it doesn't, so it's not really covering anything. So one big aspect for me is that the tests that it builds around what it's built are solid. And one of the ways we're trying to do that goes back to 2 episodes ago, when we were starting to use, where we directed it like to say, you have to build this with TDD from the beginning, with the theory that if it does that, one will end up with better test coverage, and we'll end up with better code along the way. And the rest is just things like, you don't want it creating, I don't know, helpers in the wrong places, or classes that do too much, or I don't know, controller logic in the views. Like there's so many ways that an LLM can make code that works. And when you look at it, you're like, it does everything I want it to do. But the moment you try to scale it, the moment you try to add on a new feature, it all starts falling apart very quickly. And so what we're trying to achieve is like a well-structured architecture, so that when you come in, you're like, yes, I can add on to this, and you don't feel like I have to start over. And then the design side. Andrew, what are some of the things that we found? I thought we could talk some of the things we found when we were trying to get it to do styling.
Oh yeah, that was fun. So when we initially tested this out, you were building a tool that was, or an example website that was like about penguins, right? And
Indeed it was.
It wrote some CSS, but all the classes were very descriptive of the content. So they were like penguin something something this. Like it would be far too specific in the classes it was creating, and it would end up with, in a large full-size application, you'd end up with hundreds of class names that are basically all doing the same thing, just to like style a piece of text, for example. So yeah, we updated the architecture. We used Rue, which is our new foundational CSS structure, and gave it some example code to follow. And I feel like the CSS quality is getting better, which is great to see.
Cool. Thanks for explaining that.
For sure.
Yeah, so once we feel like we get a solid output, we're also looking at an external use case here. So something that the community can pick up and use as well. We're making maybe some assumptions here about what tools these folks would want to have. Typically maybe you want to see the ability to just kind of write a whole prompt and see the entire thing created in sort of a one-shot mode, versus a Thoughtbot dev might be following the output a little bit more closely and want to go like step by step and review every commit and every change it's making. We think this is a way to accelerate the process, but we'll still need designers and developers kind of after this first version or this foundation that this tool would create is out there. These are the same thing.
Yeah, one of the ways that I keep thinking about it in my head is it's like the next level of suspenders, where we're just trying to get to a solid starting point and moving past some of the boilerplate things that we do on all projects, but now adding on an additional layer of let's add in examples of like some ideas that a founder would have and explore it really quickly before, again, we've spent too much time going down the wrong path and now think, oh, we have to rebuild this all from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that covers the gist of the background here. There's probably a lot more we can get into, but for the sake of time, so we would typically spend a lot of time diving into the context here, right? Like, what are our users' personas? What features we feel like are really critical to build here? What research has been done ahead of time in an application? There's, you can spend a whole day looking at all that stuff, but to condense it down to 5 minutes, that's our quick version. And then we took kind of this understanding here and we formed some what we call problem statements from that. So these are really short versions that kind of distill all that information down into a single need that the user has. So it's a problem that they have, and how we're going to address that will come out of this. So these are written as in kind of the same format or a single format, where we start with an as a blank, I want to blank so that blank. And we looked at 3 different use cases here. So use case 1 and use case 2 are that internal structure from the first set of stickies here, internal use case. And we can just run through these really quick. So we said, as a technical thoughtbotter developing ReadySetGo, I want to maximize visibility and control over its actions so that I can improve the code quality of the apps it generates. That's kind of our foundational problem statement for the first version of ReadySetGo, the first thing that we want to focus on building here. And then to layer on top of that, the second use case, which would be the same tool, but a little bit down the road, we're saying, as a technical thoughtbotter using ReadySetGo as part of a shaping sprint or a design sprint, I want to be able to specify product, tech, and design requirements easily for what it builds, so that I can create a well-crafted code base that I can start using after a shaping sprint. And for this use case, we really boiled it down to 2 problem statements. So the second one here was, again, as a technical thoughtbotter using ReadySetGo as part of a shaping or design sprint, I want to quickly generate multiple versions of a founder's idea so that we can A/B test multiple versions of the product with users. So this gets at that idea of rapid validation, getting ideas out there quickly, versus the first sticky is more about the fact that we want the code that's outputted by the tool to be something that we can build off of and use and not throw away, not like some like vibe coded tooling would be. And then our third case, this one was, we don't really have a solid problem statement yet, to be honest. So we're gonna leave this one as it is. You can kind of see our initial process of creating this. It's a lot of like creating run-on sentences. So we had a lot of, I want this, I want that, and then various so that statements. But yeah, this is just kind of an example that like you don't have to have everything figured out. This MVP launch is like 2 phases down the road. We don't necessarily need to completely have this locked down in order to start this design sprint process and get value from this, as we're really looking at, you know, what are we designing and building here for this first use case? And, you know, hopefully that will kind of lead us towards use case 2 and use case 3, but it doesn't mean that we have to have like every detail figured out here. The more clarity we can get, the better. But
I was going to say, I think this use case 3 is a really great signpost for, and I like the 3 so that's because I think it captures different aspects, but also there's a little bit of a continuity there, right? I want to have a real MVP to build off of, so I can create a production ready alpha version, so a team can actually then build it faster. Like, I kind of like that. But in general, I think I see this as a guidepost so that whatever we're building now, we have in mind, like, this isn't just an internal tool. We need to make this friendly. We need to make this accessible from the beginnings. Danny, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to actually say I personally care more about use case 3, and so I'd like for us to focus on that. But of course, and this is in classic, typical design sprint fashion, there's always going to be somebody who's like, yeah, let's actually like index on that one specifically, even though we said we weren't going to. And so part of these exercises, which I was kind of joking, but I also like personally really care about number 3. But in typical design sprint fashion, we are going to obviously focus on a very scoped, you know, set of use cases. And so I am very much restraining myself and trying not to get too excited about, you know, the future visions and all the cool things that we can do and the ways that I can get into it. But yeah, focusing on use case 1 and 2. Obviously, we have a very scoped and limited time to get through this. So may this be a lesson for all of those who are viewing as well. This is very common for you to be like, oh, that's exciting. Let's talk about that. But always focusing in on the ultimate first steps that we are trying to take. It feels like it's less exciting or slower, but it ends up being faster in the long run. This is always the process we go through. It's tried and true.
And then what's that last one?
This one?
Yep.
I don't remember how this one tied in, to be honest.
Let's talk through it. Actually, Danny, maybe you, I don't know, when you read that, what does it bring to you? What does it bring to mind to you?
Anyone using the tool, I want you to explore an idea with me so I can identify assumptions and edge cases so I don't build the wrong thing. I have so many ideas about what that could potentially mean, and I don't want to get into too many rabbit holes. But I like the spirit of something like that. It feels a little bit, the way I'm interpreting it, or the way my brain goes, is kind of like as a PM, kind of being like a PM assistant for me and kind of checking some things, making sure that the way that the overall product idea and the strategy that I am building are going to be valid and are tried and true and are tested. I think it's really easy, especially in this era where we're trying to build things very fast, and it's very easy to build things very, very quickly, for you to just get tunnel visioned into like, I just want to build the next feature, the next thing. Let's just keep doing it because it's instantaneous, right? And it's like this, it's almost kind of like clicking a button that's like super self-satisfying. But honestly, it's learning how to like step back every once in a while and remember like, okay, cool. Like, it's great that you have all these ideas that you want to build, but let's think about like ultimately what we are really trying to do. And it's kind of, it's a constant loop, right? Even with us right now, we're trying to focus in on use case 1 and use case 2. And it's so easy for our brains to just keep going into these like modes of just like, oh, but there's so many cool things to think about and all this other stuff, but we haven't even taken the first step yet. So maybe we need to pause on those kinds of things. That's where my brain goes for things like this, because especially as a non-technical person, it's really easy. Like I've already AI coded and vibe coded way too many apps that have already died on the internet and are just like sitting in the internet graveyard. And so reminders like this, as a teaser, I'm going to write a blog post about this actually, but
nice.
Yeah.
That's right on.
My head goes. Yeah.
That's right on. So this came from, I've been, like I said, I was working with Steve Polito, who started contributing to ReadySetGo, and he introduced a plugin. We have an internal skills marketplace that we're creating for Cloud Code and other agents. And he created one that basically had all these different approaches. And it's really interesting because it's about slowing down the development process, right? And which is seems like the opposite of what we're trying to do with AI assisted coding. And what he pointed out was, well, by creating a series of skills that basically question him, push back, ask for angles, try to get the person typing it to understand more of what they're building, to prevent exactly what you're describing or what you just described, and not just getting excited about build. And so, for example, one of the things we're going to be introducing, like one of the next features, is the concept of teams, because you can imagine, I don't own a project. It's not mine. It's going to be a whole team of people. It's going to be the ThoughtBot side. It's going to be the client side as we're working together that wants to see an app we've built and the settings around it. And so as we were starting off that feature, Steve was like, I think I would like you to try this skill and see see how it feels. And immediately, just by having a back and forth with the LLM, the two of us together were able to really crystallize our thinking around what we wanted to build. I mean, I think we spent an hour, maybe more, talking about the feature before we'd written a single line of code. And so the idea then is to bring that experience into ReadySetGo. So right now, again, previous viewers of the podcast, it says, what do you want to build today? And you type in a prompt and then off it goes. And so this is about having it push back and say, are you sure? What are your thoughts? Talk to me. I'm not judging it, right? What are your thoughts around this? Have you considered these different approaches? So I'm very interested about this one, again, in that direction of let's not get so excited, as you said, and just go, but actually slow down and get on the best path.
Yeah, that's a practice even in general for my usage with Claude or any kind of LLM in general. I have to start most of my conversations or prompts or projects and say, don't agree with me on everything. Stop agreeing. I am not the master of all knowledge. And so push back on certain things. I want you to think outside the box. I want you to cover use cases. There's so many of those ways where LLMs are just kind of built to just be like, that sounds like a great idea. I love that. And let's keep going with it. And it's sometimes you need somebody to kind of push the brakes and be like, this is great, but let's also think about these other things. And so, yeah, it's a good practice to have in general.
I literally had a line in my Claude MD for a long time that was, you never say, you're totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, please just stop saying that phrase.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's a great future for the tool. I think it kind of, to me, ties in a lot of the concepts that we do during a design sprint, where we're really trying to get people to focus in what's the core problem. Literally, that's what these problem statements are. It's trying to focus our attention down to the core problem that we're solving, and make sure that's the correct thing to be solving. It's helping people get ready and set before they go, right? Is that what we can say?
I see what you did there.
Yes, I love it.
All right, so let's do that a little bit here in our sprint. So we're going to move from the problem statement into a critical path. So really, all we're going to do is I'm going to take the first problem statement and we're going to start charting a journey for the user as they interact with this application. So I like to start with the first and the end of their journey, and then we're going to fill in what happens between in the middle. So Louis, I'm going to ask you questions here since I think you're the most well-versed on the plan here. We can push back as needed or introduce different ideas. But
All right.
what's your sense on kind of the starting point for the user? Again, this is a internal use case here. So we're talking about improving the tool's output at this point.
Okay.
What do you see as the starting point?
So let me think through this for a second. I think my starting point is actually like I'm unhappy with the last thing that it produced.
Okay.
Like I went through a test run. I said make me a to-do list. It generated code, and I looked at it. I'm like, nope, we missed the mark.
It being ReadySetGo.
It being ReadySetGo. Yeah, the worker, the agent, but fundamentally ReadySetGo.
Okay, so they're already using the application. Kind of,
Yep.
So we're kind of stepping into the journey mid-flow. They've prompted something, and then this is what you see as the critical journey that we're exploring at this stage. What does the end of this journey look like to you?
The end of the journey is that we've introduced some change into the code base that I won't say prevents that from happening again, because with LLMs, everything is non-deterministic, but that we've addressed it in such a way that it is no longer like a repeated glaring problem. So we've added guardrails or a reviewer or some process that corrects for one aspect of what I was unhappy about.
Is that fair? Introduce a change to the code base so that it's no longer a repeated problem.
Perfect.
Okay. So that's our start and end. Let's talk about what happens in between.
Okay.
Unhappy with the last thing. Okay, so what would their first kind of action be here?
I think the first thing is understanding where in the process it went wrong. Like, was it an early assumption that it took and that happened, or was it like so close and just missed the mark?
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at that makes me think that then there's a step in between that, because between unhappy and understanding, this goes to like some of the things we talked about. Like, I need to be able to see those steps, maybe even while it's doing it, like while it's generating an app. Because like right now, and this comes directly from my experience with chat as we were working on things. It's like we've got a terminal window over here that's looking at a log. We've got another one looking at other logs. I've got Visual Studio up looking at differences. I'm looking at the commit history in Git, and it's just like all over the place. And then you're like, wait, flip back to the agent, and it's 20 steps down the road, and the logs are now 10 more pages full of things. So it's giving me the idea of her feature, which might be like, have a way to like go one step at a time and pause instead of running away. But for right now, I see. Good. Nice. So that's right. We wrote a prompt. I don't even know if it's see the steps it took, because I think that's in the middle. Like, I think that one is see the final product.
This one here?
I think so. I'm not sure. Tell me what you're thinking around like, because the current problem state is I have a very difficult way to see the steps. So I guess you're saying like going forward. Let's keep working on it. We can figure out.
Yeah.
We can figure out the order.
So I'll say these critical paths always look a little bit different depending on the project we're working on. So if we want to look at this more from a like what features are missing in this journey and what exists today, we can do that. I just put these in gray here because these are like context that happened before the user got to like what we're saying is
I
the
see.
start of our critical
Nice.
path.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you saying, just so I understand this, that we need like they need to be able to see the steps here in order to like make the critical path make sense?
I was envisioning it as following the unhappy with the last thing ReadySetGo produced. And so then actually the next step would be, I guess, write a new prompt.
After here.
Yeah. And then I don't know if this becomes like one sticky or multiples, but basically that next block then is the right observability. See the steps it maybe it's taking as it is creating. Maybe if we make that in the present tense, it captures a little more of what's happening.
Mm.
In terms of like what we don't have right now. Because I mean,
I see.
technically,
Yeah.
you could do that now. You could look through the log and it's, I don't know, 50 or 60 pages, screenfuls long of stuff. And you could poke and prod your way through it. But what we don't have is a step-by-step, cool, it took the next step. Do we like it? Okay, good. Like I want a tighter iteration loop where I don't have to wait till the very end and study a gigantic log to understand how did we get here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was going to ask, are we doing this? Because it seems like we're kind of flipping back and forth between like the what would be cool state and also kind of like what Lewis is currently running into. And so as we're doing this critical path, like are we focusing first on the current way in which you're addressing this flow, or are we also trying to at the same time bake in like what we want the flow to eventually look like? Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think.
Like, are we talking current state or are we talking future state, basically?
I think we're designing the future state for what we want to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Lewis, you're baking in your current context of like where it's frustrating now is a little tricky in this case because we have written some software here. We're currently experimenting with this concept. So there's a problem you're running into currently, which is needing this. And these are like things that you wish you could do after that is kind of how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want me to try and reframe it to think of it as if we had nothing written and sort of like explore the ideal process that way?
No, I like this approach.
Okay.
I don't know if that would change much of like the outside context.
Okay.
Let's go with this path for now, and we can see if that still applies to other scenarios.
All right, cool.
Okay, so you're unhappy. You write a new prompt. You see the steps ReadySetGo is taking. And that allows you to understand where in the process it went wrong.
Yeah, and then I think, I don't know if this would be part of this flow, it'd be like stop and restart. Like the moment it goes wrong, stop.
Okay.
And this is also a challenging thing, again, going with like the non-deterministic part is like, you also kind of have to run it a few times to know, like, does it mess up every time? Or is it just this once? It once went awry. So it adds a little extra complexity. But let's assume that every time it makes a mistake, it's going to make it every time, just to keep this flow simple.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We're abstracting a little bit of complexity at this point.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
So then like stop and restart loops back to write a new prompt.
Yeah.
Although in this case, best practice would be to repeat the same prompt. And then actually, yeah, why don't we do that? instead of write a new prompt, let's make that repeat the prompt. Because the idea is, what if someone had started all the way on the left with this prompt?
Hmm.
The point here is not that you didn't prompt correctly. The point is ReadySetGo didn't have enough tooling to interpret the prompt correctly and act correctly. So we'll write a new, so the fourth square there from the left becomes repeat the prompt. Even after all the way, like the fourth square from the left, the second purple square.
This
Yeah,
one?
that one. Yes.
Oh, right, because the person already started with an initial prompt, and so the first output was already wrong.
I see. Are they, so if they're repeating the prompt, is everything that happened in this initial prompt wiped away? All that code that was generated?
Yeah, basically what you would do is you would just like start over. It would be going back to the beginning and saying, new project, here's what I want you to build.
Okay. So to me, this feels like a mode within the tool, it's almost like a testing mode or something like that.
Okay, sure.
But maybe that's a little prescriptive. Can't get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah.
Okay, so this line then does actually connect here.
Yep. And so right, so this critical path is I'm going to go through this a few times just to understand and see how it's failing and when it's failing. And then now I need to do something else. Like now, and the next step, so in between stop and restart and our introduce a change, I mean, I guess it is, maybe this is the introduce a change to the code base.
I feel like there's a question that happens at some point in here of do we know what went wrong? Or do we know what the problem is, right?
Very, very true.
I'd just like to spell this out a little bit more clearly. So if we don't, then we do the stop and restart.
Yeah, okay. Nice.
Bunch of lines everywhere. Whoops. If we do, then we're done. Danny, as a PM, does this make sense to you? Do you feel like we have the right level of context for the problem at this point?
I think so. It's like a little meta to think through this for me, but there's something with the unhappy with the last thing ReadySetGo produced and then repeat the prompt and starts over. I feel like there's a step in between, almost like a decision. Or it's almost kind of I guess we technically made the decision at the end. Sorry, I process out loud, so. I think it makes sense. I have a lingering thought of something, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
I think is there a question that actually happens here that we should spell out more clearly, that we see the output and we don't like it? Also, are we talking about output in terms of the UI that's being generated, the code quality? Any of it?
I think primarily code quality is where I was envisioning it. I'm maybe see the generated app or evaluate the generated app, something like that. Sure, see the code output is great.
I guess the darker purple though would be the unhappy. If we're saying unhappy with the last thing ReadySetGo produced, it would actually be more specifically unhappy with the code quality
Sure.
Mhm.
I like that.
that ReadySetGo produced. If we're going to focus, like if we're going to focus in on something specific, let's keep the UI out for now and focus on just code quality.
Like it.
Okay. Really, that's a question, but I'm not going to bother turning it into more shapes.
Yeah, I think that's what I was gonna say is like there's like a happy with it, yes, happy with it, no, and then the no path is this path that we have
Yeah.
written out, and then the happy path is something different. But yeah.
All right. Let's do this right.
You know, yesterday I was making a flow chart in my head, and it started with, "Is this food spoiled? I don't know. Is it blue cheese? Yes. I still don't know." So I'm very happy to be doing flow charts today.
Actually, I feel like that's enough contribution. I probably have to drop, but good luck. Yes, and done. That's my contribution.
Thank you so much for joining. I would love to have you on again. I think having the long distance vision of where we're going is like so critical to making sure we don't veer away from that as we're trying to get there. So thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Excited to see where this goes. Bye all.
Take care.
Bye.
Now there's no PM. We can do whatever we want.
Let that be a lesson to all founders out there. Keep the PM involved.
Kidding. We're kidding. Okay. Introduce a change, and then you might, I guess, go back to. I mean, you hope the change works. So are you also going back to restart?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Or maybe we don't call it out in this entire flow because it's kind of different. I guess it's the same type of flow here, but we're validating rather than like finding the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if going back to the problem statement, I think that problem statement maps to see the steps, you know, it maps to this one here. That this is the part that's missing right now in what we have.
Oh, there.
And that makes this loop you know, take probably orders of magnitude longer to address, and makes it much harder to get to this final step where we've fixed it.
Yeah, so we're really just trying to close this loop as much as possible, or tighten up the speed that we go through here.
Exactly.
Okay. That's simple, but I feel like covers the use case. Should we move on to the second one?
Yeah, so quick time check. We're about halfway through our time. We've got about 40 minutes-ish left. The only thing I can think of here, if we had more time, I think our next step would be, okay, so let's blow up this see the steps ReadySetGo is taking, because that's kind of like a really generic box. I could build that multiple different ways and still miss the mark. Like I think we could explore this one as another flow of trying to come up with what we build, and maybe that would happen in the like the prototyping, where we're like draw out some ideas of what the UI might look at. But I think given time, it sounds like moving on to the next one might be a good thing. What do you think?
Yeah, let's focus on the critical path exercises. I think it's helpful to see how that could
Okay.
look differently for different paths. But I definitely agree that needs a lot of exploration. Maybe if there's time at the end, we can come back and revisit that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Either mapping it out or doing some sort of visualization or exploration on it. But yeah, you're right. It could be solved. Things like that it's a problem that could be solved in many ways. That's when we kind of push pause and we dive deeper into that.
Nice.
All right, let's see. We've got 2 problem statements for our second critical path.
Okay.
I'll pull those over here. To remind ourselves, we're talking about another technical thought partner using ReadySetGo as part of a shaping sprint. And they want to be able to specify product tech and design requirements easily for what it builds. And they want to generate multiple versions of a founder's idea so that they can create a well-crafted code base that they can start using after a shaping sprint, and so that they can A/B test multiple versions of the product with users. I think the most interesting thing to look at would be this piece here.
Sure.
That is raising some interesting questions in my brain, at least.
Yeah.
Does that make
so
sense?
Same structure. Yeah, totally. So starting point, ending point, and then we'll fill in the middle.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So for me, then the starting block is a shaping sprint begins. And for the audience thinking about that, let's say we're thinking about this. It's a 2-week engagement where, day one, where we've got some, the founders already reached out to us. They've said, I have this idea for a product. This is kind of what we were thinking. Maybe they have some, some prior screenshots or things that they've built out. So we have some knowledge going in, but at the same time, when we start day one of a shaping sprint, we're like, let's talk about your idea from the beginning as if we knew nothing. So this is it, day one. Day one, we've just been introduced and we're sitting down for a shaping sprint like this.
Something like that?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the ending point, our ideal or target ending point is we have a proof of concept ready to share application that the founder can carry forward. And I don't know that we need to capture this in this block, but that can have multiple meanings. It could be like, I've got something that I can now show to, I'm looking for funding. And so, I can take it to various people and say, hey, here's what I'm building. I'm looking for a partner to help me fund this. Are you interested? Here's a work, like, instead of me telling you what the idea is, try it out. So that's like one possible endpoint. Another one is they're like, awesome, we know exactly what we want to build. Now let's engage with, Thoughtbot. And now I'd like you to build this for me. And now let's say we're going to go off on like 12 weeks and really get the whole thing going. So, but fundamentally, both those pieces are, I have a code base, I'm happy with it, and it captures an idea that we're going to move forward with.
Mm-hmm. Though this one up here says we'll generate multiple versions of the founder's idea.
Yeah. So that one I feel like this is like a midpoint. And so on day one, we're diving deep on the problem. Traditionally, like what we would do is maybe on day 2, we would spike and, development would be looking at what kinds of things are technically feasible. Design is doing like prototyping of like a design language or like what it might look like, or starting to come up with ideas, right? And then you might generate a prototype and say, okay, it's day 3 or 4. You tell me when you would have it ready. But but like at some point you'd be like, we want to put this in front of users before this 2-week engagement is over and see, does this at all resonate with with people that are like part of the target audience for the app? And so that second case is this midpoint where we're like, rather than just saying, here's our idea, do you like it? Imagining that we could say, here's 3 ideas, and whether like you run, whether the same person runs through 3 iterations of it and says, I like this one the best, or whether we have 3 times as many user interviews, each person looking more in depth at a particular prototype, and we look at all the feedback from all of them, and then we can say like, oh look, prototype B had the most positive and the least negative feedback,
Yeah.
and now we can pull in ideas from prototypes A and C into B and finish our shaping sprint with this idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that concept. There's so many times where we have sprints and you get like 2 really great ideas at the output. And typically you only have time to really explore one of those. Or maybe one idea is like a super smaller version of the concept, like a really small MVP. But yeah, being able to test all of those possibilities and using this as kind of a tool in our tool belt, so to speak, would be awesome. So somewhere in this middle point, we're going to be exploring multiple versions, I guess, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
And at the end, we pick one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Pick the best ideas out of all of them, and then move forward.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot in the middle here. So let's look into that.
Yep.
All right, day 1. So in the sprint, so we're also talking now outside of ReadySetGo. We're talking about sitting down with a founder or a team and starting this design sprint process where we're asking questions about the research that they've done. What is their understanding of the problem? What context do they have that we should be aware of? And are you saying that at some point in that process, maybe after we do our understand exercises, we're ready to start exploring solutions, prototyping something?
Yeah, I think so. So like roughly, again, like if this is a 2-week sprint, I'm imagining that day 3 is generating prototypes.
Yeah. So between that, we've done some converging on a solution,
right?
Or on a problem statement.
Right. We've gone through some prototyping exercises, sketched out ideas for it could look like this or it could look like this.
And then ready to prototype. And now we're actually getting to the point where we're pulling up ReadySetGo.
Yes.
Okay.
And now, yeah.
Oh, that's annoying. Okay, sorry. You were saying now.
And this is the point. So right after this step, we're right after ReadySetGo. So right now, it's just a prompt. What do you want to build today? And in our first iteration of the Rails app, it's probably going to be the same thing, just in a web UI. What do you want to build today? And then it goes off. And so that's not really sustainable. You can't imagine all the work we've done in these first 4 boxes. We've done, maybe there's all the starting things that the founder brought to us from the beginning, screenshots, napkin sketches, whatever that might be. All the diverging and converging that we've done, talking about ideas, saying like, what about this? And we're like, no, let's not do that. And then we all this is the idea we want. We need a way to feed all that to ReadySetGo as its starting point. So that we're not answering what do you want to build today by typing it into a prompt. Yes, you could still do that. Maybe you tell it lightly, what do you want to build today? I want to build a shopping app, and it's geared towards finding the perfect stuffed animal. Who knows? And it could do that. It could just run with that. But when we're doing it in a sprint, we're going to have all this material that we want to feed in. So we're like, I want to create this ideal shopping app, and here's all my input files. So this is that second line. I want to be able to specify product, tech, and design requirements easily for what it builds.
Yeah, we could probably literally just copy this.
Nice. And so I think then those next boxes might be, I don't know exactly how you want to capture this, but you're going to have like text files, markdown, something that's going to be that you need to upload. You're going to need to upload images and have it be able to process those images to understand designs. You might have a Figma file, like, you know, if you've done like the developer export or something, maybe we connect it to the Figma MCP server that you introduced me to, and like have it talk to the designs directly, like all these different ways for it to understand deeply everything we've done, so that it's building to what we want and not in a vacuum.
Yeah. I don't want to get too prescriptive on what that has to look like.
Of course.
I'm gonna hold us back from designing that kind of solution to the problem there, but the what needs to happen is that fair upload context.
Exactly. This is the hardest part of a sprint, because you start getting all these ideas. You're like, what if we did this?
I know.
What if we did this?
I hear reading screenshots and I'm like, that sounds like it would take a while.
It's fun to be on the other side of this.
Yeah. So if we're uploading context, do we also maybe want it to push back on I guess what if the ReadySetGo doesn't have enough context from what we upload? Like, what if there's outstanding questions? Do we want some sort of dialogue here at this point, kind of get into that like thing you were talking about earlier, where we want people to slow down?
Yeah, like we could pull in that fifth problem statement.
Yep. Yeah, these the last two critical paths here, or sorry, problem statements, are pretty related. It's just the audience is different. I think that's what we said. The things it's doing are pretty similar. So let's see, how do we describe this?
Is it like a Q&A with ReadySetGo? Challenge assumptions, a small feedback loop of like collect more info, or like, do I have enough context, get more? I don't know.
Yeah, let's write it out more as a decision point.
Okay.
Like, does ReadySetGo have enough context? Does ReadySetGo know what that looks like?
I think so.
Okay.
And like that can be a task then, where we have to teach it or tell it, you know, this is how you know when you have enough.
Right.
So yeah. And I would even say, does ReadySetGo think it has enough context? Because it's going to make the call.
Okay. So is it like ask if it doesn't have enough concept? What happens?
So what if the box that you're adding there, what if that goes to the left of the diamond, and that specify product, tech, and design requirements leads to two things? One is prompting, because like that's still, I think, going to be a valid part of expressing those requirements.
Okay.
So it's like prompting is one box, upload context is another. And like prompting's what we have now.
Prompting for the sake of less about telling it what to build and more about giving it context, or is that something different?
I think it could be both. Like, I think I imagine the prompt as like if I were coming to you, it's almost like the elevator pitch for the idea. And so I'm saying, hey LLM, this is the thing we're gonna build, so that it has like a summary of
Mhm.
what we think it is, and then when it evaluates all the uploaded material, it's reviewing it in the context of that summary. And so then now it evaluates that. And then if it doesn't think it have enough context, now we're looping back into this either more prompting or uploading more.
I see. Okay. So you're like, it's like write the summary of what we're building,
Hmm.
upload all your context, and then like check if these two match.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, because that's another case that you that the LLM's like, wait, I don't understand. These things don't make sense.
Yeah.
Or it says, I think they do make sense, and it tells you. And as the founder or a shaping sprint team, you're like, no, that missed the mark. we need to keep talking here. Which again mirrors, this mirrors the shaping sprint process, right? Because we can come up with an entire idea, and the founder can be like, well, the pieces are all right, but that's not the direction I intended at all, right? And we want to catch that early before we start building prototypes, and certainly before we start building a product, right? To have that conversation. So I like this. I like how it's mirroring our shaping sprint approach, just condensing it. And like, to me, this building it in this way feels like building it how we would build it.
Mm-hmm. Which is the goal. So that's great. Is this like, I guess I was initially thinking about this in terms of product context, in terms of like, what are the features that we want to build? What's the goal of the application? Are you seeing this as also the way to describe technical requirements and potentially design requirements?
Yeah, I think all of it.
Okay.
Because once ReadySetGo like kicks off and it says, okay, I have everything I want to work on. You don't want to be 7 steps in and then be like, no, this is not what we're trying to build.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if we didn't have this interrogation step here, right? Like it's making our penguin cataloger, and it's somehow missed the mark just completely. We want to catch that in the cycle as early as possible. So yeah, absolutely. This could be, technical requirements like, I don't know, I have to use AWS, or I refuse to use AWS. So that it is coming up with, well, how do I do this part of it? Maybe I should or shouldn't design it with what I know about AWS in mind. But it would also be like, oh, this is what they want. Like if you're like, I don't know, in creating the Penguin cataloger, I think it generated, each time I ran it, a different look for what like that opening homepage is of showing me all the penguins. So if I've given it a screenshot of this is, or a screenshot of like a drawing, or a little Figma sketch or something, it's like, oh, this is how I should lay out the the homepage. That's my thinking there.
Okay.
From the macro all the way down to the micro.
Yeah, that will be interesting. I think my brain's already going to all sorts of solution ideas, so I'm trying to rein that back in.
I'm here for you.
But I feel like this captures kind of the journey that you'd be taking here.
We just need the yes branch.
We need a yes branch, yes. So earlier we were talking about it creating multiple versions. I don't want a diamond. Okay. Is that what it's doing here? So we're creating like our first version of the app? Or
This is interesting, and this is where I'm like, I love shaping sprints because I know I had assumptions coming into this of what this would look like, and by thinking about this very moment, I'm having them challenged. So one thought would be that you run through this process, and right, so that the empty block now is just go, and it builds me a version. And then if I want to address part 2, generating multiple versions of a founder's idea, I start over at launch ready set go, and maybe I feed it different product tech and design requirements, right? And I give it a different prompt to describe the idea. And probably for a V1, that's probably what it's going to look like. The flip side would be in specifying the requirements, you tell it, I want to see 3 different versions of this. And maybe this is solutionizing, but I found that giving an LLM too much context means it just picks and chooses the wrong things. And like, I don't want it to conflate ideas from one design and put it in the other because they might be pretty different, right? Like, we're not talking about, I want the homepage to be horizontal carousels versus vertical carousels. It's more like, I want the app to be like user-based, pay to enter, or like community feed. And it's like almost a totally different product that's meeting the same need of cataloging penguins. So I think this is go. I think this block is go. And then if you want multiple iterations, I think you're just running this process again, but I don't know. What do you think as you hear that?
Yeah, I don't know. I initially went to the context of the various explorations will always be the same, but there's maybe pieces of that context that you want to push on more in one version than the other. So to me, this feels like in Claude, for example, this is like your project context. And then you could maybe have a couple different chat conversations about that, where you could tell it to push on different things or challenge certain parts of your context and your assumptions. Also have to think that like maybe people don't always want to generate multiple versions. So maybe that's an optional thread.
I mean, I could see certainly like it asking, so then before go, like it could ask, do you want to generate a variant of this idea? And then maybe that then, right, if you say no, then we continue and we go. And if you say yes, then it's like, great, put the variants, I don't know, in this folder, upload the variants here, whatever. And now it will then internally loop over the first idea and then start over with the code, but use the variant product context that it's been given to build, the prototype B version.
Yeah.
And so the nice thing is we could, like, in building that, like for right now, we just don't support the do you have more ideas branch, but it's right there. It's built in, right? Like, do you have more ideas? If you say yes, it can be like, I'm sorry, we're just going to go with this one for now. And then when we're ready to add that layer on, once we've got the main loop running, then we can go back and add on, cool, let's explore the prototypes.
Yeah.
I've already written the feature flags in my head.
So let me just write this flow out as you were describing it.
Sure.
It generates, in this state, it generates one app.
Yes.
And then we've got something off to the side that's like.
And it would be after the diamond is where it would go into the flow.
Right, yeah.
Does it have variants on the idea or variations?
I do wonder. This is an interesting question around like how hands-on do we think people need to be here? Like, is it the user that's just setting this at this point, or is ReadySetGo smart enough to read our context and know that like, hey, they've kind of got a couple different ideas going on here, and suggest like, kind of throwing those out and seeing what they look like.
That's really, really interesting. Wow, my brain is exploding with this idea now in a good way. I think. I mean, I don't know. I almost feel like we should eventually aim for both. Maybe not, right? Maybe not in our MVP version of it, but I do think in the course of in my experience with shaping sprints, frequently there have been not competing ideas, but like multiple ideas that the team was interested in.
Mhm.
But we had to settle on one. And that was part of the converge part was, okay, we can't build 3 prototypes in 2 weeks. So we're just going to stick with one. Which one do we resonate with the most? Which one, connects with us? So I do think the manual query there of, okay, you've shared all your information. Do you have other ideas that you want to explore? Or do you have variations on this idea? And then I think the next step would be, so we have our primary context, we've expressed variations, and then, ReadySetGo could say, well, based on your initial idea plus variations, I have variation ideas that you might want to explore. And so that
Mhm.
could be another query loop of getting more context.
Yeah.
And I could see like both of those. So we like, it has enough somewhere in this flow. I'm not sure exactly where. It might even be before the diamond now that I think about it. Somewhere in there, those 2 gray boxes hook in.
Yeah.
Just as a note, we've got about 15 minutes left. If there's anything you wanted to cover before, because I feel like this is like at a really solid place. I'd love to keep working on it, or if there's something you wanted to get to, now's the time.
No, I think this is well. Let's finish our flow. Make sure we actually do reach the end here. I think it is.
Okay.
It is showing the value of these exercises, like you said, in terms of sparking ideas and helping us think through where this could go. Ultimately, you'll see there's obviously so much context missing here. There's so many ways that this could go, even outside of this flow. But this will always be the kind of guideline that we can look back to and say, does this feature we're debating adding actually align with this critical path or not? It's kind of that thing that we can use to benchmark our ideas in the future. Okay, so in our straightforward flow, let's put this kind of variation idea to the side for a second.
Okay.
It generates one app. Is that, I guess, the end then, in your mind?
So we didn't capture the part where we have like the user interviews part. And I don't know if that's so like somewhere in here we want a user interview whatever it's generated.
So we're evaluating if the idea resonated.
Yeah, and then
user testing. Yep.
I think here then we get an arrow which is like all user feedback joins the upload context.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if users love it, they are going to have feedback, things we didn't think about, good ideas, great ideas on how to change it and make it better. And so we're going to want to incorporate that. And whether that means regenerating the app or if Ready Set Go can just be like, oh sure, I can, bloop bloop, change some things around. But it might be that we're like, yes, let's just start over. Great, we built this. Now we've got feedback. Instead of maybe trying to, jury rig solutions onto what you already built, have this context from the beginning, rebuild it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love the concept of like your knowledge base here remaining up to date and growing with user feedback. Yeah, like you said, there's always feedback from users, but that's valuable data.
Yes.
You don't want to action on everything necessarily, but you bring it back to your core problem and you identify if it's something that challenges an assumption that you were testing with the prototype, or if it requires some fundamental changes, especially if you see patterns in that feedback. But
yeah, and like I could even again imagine like I've seen so right, we interview users and then we typically generate like a transcript of what their feedback was. Like I could see feeding Ready Set Go like here are the transcripts that we felt most connected with what that makes sense to us and that this is what we want to continue. Here's a feedback that we weren't sure about. Keep it in your back pocket. I don't know what I would say to it, but basically like sure, and some feedback we might not feedback into the system, but yeah, right, adding to the pool of knowledge, I think will definitely help us to that overall goal of creating something that meets the mark.
So if there was feedback that we feel like we need to take action on before we reach the end here, do you think we would go back, we'd add the context, the feedback here, and then we'd go through this flow again? Excuse me. And create another version? Yeah.
Probably. And I think it depends on the level of the feedback. Like some of it might be, well, we could just take the generated app and start building on it. That's fine too. Oh gosh, and that suggests can we add a gray box of like existing code base and put that somewhere near the context?
Okay.
And my thinking is there, if it has generated an app once and it was like really close, it like really came close to hitting the mark, or some parts of it were correct, like that can be part of its knowledge too. Like it doesn't have to start from zero every time. We can say like, look at this code base. Here were the problems we found with it. It did this right and it did this wrong. That gives Ready Set Go more knowledge to build the right thing. So, and it's just like thinking about we've got user feedback and we've got new knowledge. How do we get to that final then step of the proof of concept is ready? We might say, here's the last 6 runs. You can study the code base for these last 6 and see here's what we liked, here's what we didn't. Generate the final app. So maybe that's the last thing, generate final app.
And this could be a totally new branch. It could be a refinement of this app that we've already created, right?
Yep.
There's
honestly,
probably a lot of ways to get there.
Say, generate final app '*s, because with this much flexibility and having been able to build these, maybe the founder wants to take 2 prototypes away and try them out of friends and family. So yeah.
Yeah, it could be one or
maybe
more.
Just say maybe we just say yeah, okay.
I also do think when we're talking about variations or branching here, at least that's what I'm thinking in terms of like Git. maybe that could also be happening after the users generated an app. Like maybe they start with a version they really like, but then in one prompt it looks pretty good, but they want to branch off and try something else based on that, because it's always helpful to
Right.
see something. So once you see it, you start playing
Yeah.
with it, you're going to get ideas, you're going to want to explore things. I feel like you could end up with a lot of possible variations here, and discover that during this point too, not just necessarily before creating anything. I don't know if we need to capture that all in this this diagram, but we're starting to see how this can quickly like branch into other ideas.
I totally agree. And I really like where we've gotten to here. I think this crystallizes the flow. And I think also I wanted to talk about this at the beginning. As we were talking with Danny, and coming new to Ready Set Go, and as we're building this within Thoughtbot, there are a lot of people that are like, "Hey, I'm interested in working on this. What is it? How is it going to work?" I feel like this sprint, like maybe even this episode, would be really good source material to be like, this is a good foundation for you to understand how it's going to work and what it does. So I'm loving that we've created this.
Yeah, I totally agree. It feels more solidified to me. You feel like there's still room for experimenting and pushing things a little bit. We obviously haven't created any UI or anything here, but it at least gives everyone kind of an understanding of like, what have we talked about so far? What's the general idea here? And then we can kind of push this a little bit. And after this exercise, if this was a real sprint, we'd be doing diverge exercises. So it'd be like getting out pen and paper and sketching out, like, what do some of these decision points look like? I think we were talking about one of these steps up here that had a lot of possible ways it could go. Like we'd be looking into that a lot more. Kind of tough finishing it right here, because it's an exciting point when you're like, get all these ideas and you want to go kind of sketch it out. But
I mean, no promises, but there's next Friday.
There are more Fridays in the future.
Indeed.
Great. Do you think we should start wrapping it up here?
Yeah, I think this is so amazing to me, because like where we started from was, we have a little prompt blinking in a terminal saying, "What do you want to build today?" And now we have this vision for what happens and how to make that experience from the beginning like richer and understand what are the needs we're trying to meet for, again, like going back to our problem statements, for technical thoughtbotters and for external founders, for people participating in a sprint or just wanting to play around with an idea. I think this helps us with that goal of, as we start to build out that UI, not building the wrong thing. So thank you so much for leading this, for leading us through this sprint. I will say I have had the honor of working with Andrew on sprints before, and they are amazing.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me join, and yeah, hopefully we can keep moving this forward.
All right. With that, thank you to all our viewers. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you next week.